So here's a mistake that many of you will make. And if you know what I'm saying there, then do put a phrase in the comments. It's official, the UK is having a heat wave and our camper vans have turned into giant metal roasting tins. It's 30+ degrees outside, which means it's about 1,000 degrees in here. Well, it can certainly feel that hot. This is made worse by a mistake that loads of people are making that turns the van or even your car into an oven. And actually fixing that is one of the best things which you can do. So today I'm going to be sharing some tips. Many of them are actually free, and also some ultimate cooling methods to survive this heat wave without actually melting. Although I can't promise the same for your ice cream. It could be too late to think about some of these tips, but others you can thank me for later. I'm sure lots of you will find something interesting here. Many of the things are free and some just require a little bit of thought and careful consideration. Now the first practical tip, and one which you might think is silly, but do hear me out, and it's actually parking the van. You know, park in the shade obviously, but the sun moves. That prime shady spot which you find at 9 AM in the morning could be a furnace by lunchtime. Think ahead, and you can sometimes see people parking in the shade in the morning really happy with themselves, only to return a little bit later on when the dinner has already been cooked because the van has actually been absolutely roasting. The van was no longer in the shade, so the temperature inside was really just turned up, making it rather uncomfortable. Also, think about the direction which you're parking. That massive windscreen is a big greenhouse. Point it north, point it away from that midday sun. And an extra big tip on that coming up very soon, which a lot of people do get wrong. And something you may not have thought of about is the surface which you're actually parking on. If you park on grass, then it's going to be far cooler than parking on tarmac. So that hard standing pitch might not have been the good idea that you thought it was. And next we have insulation. And at this point you either have it or you don't. But more on that in my project series, which is going to be coming now very, very soon. And we think that insulation makes the van cooler in the summer and warmer in the winter. But that's not exactly true. It's insulation. Let me explain. If you have an uninsulated van in the summer, it will heat up instantly. An insulated van, on the other hand, will resist that temperature change and only heat up slowly. You know, think of it a little bit like an insulated flask. If you place a cold liquid inside, it will stay cool longer because of the insulation. Without that insulation, the temperature is going to be rising towards that ambient temperature far quicker. So if it's hot outside, then that means that that liquid will warm up a lot quicker without the insulation. And the reverse can be said for winter. Hence people want insulation to retain that heat, to make sure that they stay warm when it's cold. In the summer though, like I say, without insulation, our vans won't have that resistance and will heat up far quicker. You're not likely to change that today though. So here's a mistake that many of you will make. You can change it. It's an easy fix. That internal blind which you've got is going to allow the heat to actually enter the vehicle and keep it there. Whether it's reflective or not, inside is not the place for this. They might be easy to put up in place, but they are nowhere near as effective as placing an insulated one on the outside of the van. An insulated reflective one, and this also goes for cars. The external cover reflects the heat before it enters the vehicle. When the sun hits an internal blind, the heat is already inside the van, creating an extra heated layer of air against the glass. An external cover, on the other hand, stops the heat outside. It's the best type of cover for your glass, but it should be reflective, like this one is, reflective and insulated. That piece of black material will be nowhere near as effective. The same can be said for the other windows of the van, although not as often seen. Again though, using that reflective insulated material, it can be secured by magnets to the outside of the van. These block the heat before it gets inside your camper van, which is a good start, and it isn't difficult to do. Something which makes a difference, but not really something you can change very easily. Well, you can, but it's not exactly cheap to do so, and that's the colour of the van. Now, my van is black, so it's going to be worse in a heat wave than somebody who's got that white van. It's just physics. You know, you could change it with a wrap quite quickly, or maybe a fresh paint job, but it's not something which you can do to keep the heat out right now. It's not something I can do myself just now. As much as I'd like to get it wrapped bay leaf green, oak green or something like that. I'm kind of stuck with black, especially for today. We don't only want to prevent heat getting in, we need to ventilate to take that hot air out. You know, we need airflow. You know, if you have a pop top and then you can park somewhere where you can actually have it raised, then that's absolutely great. Although it would only really be the same temperature as it is outside. But there are things which we can do to lower this temperature, which I'll mention in a moment. And additionally, not all canvases are the same. Some are more breathable than others. Some have windows and mesh, and some have an air vent, whereas others don't. Now we know that hot air rises, so creating that pathway can actually help hot air going out one way and then cooler air coming in the other way. A kind of natural current to help that cooling flow, a convection current going through it. Now, utilising a tailgate lock is something which can facilitate this. Having the tailgate where it's slightly ajar, that's quite stiff because it's got the Transporter HQ struts on. But yeah, if it's latched open like that, then it can actually suck that cooler air coming in from lower down. And then if you've got the windows open, the hot air can escape through that or through the pop top. And then that's where the wind deflectors on the windows actually come in really, really useful. The windows can be lowered slightly without any risk of rain getting in. Not particularly a concern for today, but you will also want that ventilation when it is going to be the cooler months. So when the weather is poor, maybe in the winter, you've got that diesel heater on and it's raining outside, you still need to have those windows open so you can have that airflow, because that will obviously help with the condensation. But it's not just the front window vents which you can actually get. Another window vent option is grills. You can have grills on the sliding door windows, and you can buy grills to allow this airflow, which also have bug prevention things so bugs can't get in as well. And I think Transporter HQ might have actually some options for these. And you might notice with all this stuff which I'm talking about now, I'm not providing any links. I'm just talking about products which, you know, just to help you. They're meant to be informative, just giving you some tips that people might not have been aware of. And even though that some of these seems blatantly obvious, it's quite clear that they aren't to everybody. You know, you can clearly see that if you actually look around at some of the vans and the cars, they are making these mistakes, especially that insulation on the inside of the van. But back to the ventilation. And with this, you can actually give it a push along with a fan or two, placing them tactically. You can have one to suck the cooler air in and then one to actually blow that hot air out of another. And like with everything else with vans and components and things, there's varying budgets. Some you can hardwire in, some you can plug into the 12-volt socket, maybe USB or battery operated. You know, choosing something that can suit your setup, because not all vans are the same, all vans are different, and what's best for me might not actually be the best for you. You know, if you don't have a pop top, or your pop top option has an option to have a fan installed, then maybe that roof fan might be something which you want to do. A fan that can suck out the hot air and then pull in the cooler, it really does help to cool the whole van, rather than just pointing a fan directly at you, which if you've only got one, your partner or the children might not be too impressed with. The way to really ensure that you've got a cool van though is another option, and I believe we're going to be seeing a lot more of these in the future, and there are also a growing number of options for this. Previously, using one of these was really prohibitive by the lack of power, or more specifically the length of time required of that power that would actually be available to you. You know, these things can use a lot of power, and a normal leisure battery would just be dead in a very short amount of time. Therefore, hookup or an expensive off-grid system was often used to be able to use them effectively. But air conditioning is becoming more and more common. That's for a few reasons. One is that portable aircon units are improving. You know, a few brands provide these now, and I do have to say that I've never actually used one, so I personally cannot testify how good or not they actually are. But I've seen a few units at the NEC show, and they feel lovely and chilly. But a word of warning on that one in a moment. And I also know that EcoFlow have introduced the third version of the portable aircon unit, the Wave 3, which is an improvement over the previous versions. This one's actually lithium iron phosphate batteries. And like I say, I've never used them, so I cannot vouch for anything, but I'm just saying that they are available. The beauty of these though is you can actually use them in your house too. So when you're not lucky enough to be away in your van, you can be using them at home as a heater or a dehumidifier. And it's the dehumidifier aspect that actually appeals to me. They aren't the only aircon option though. as there are fixed variants which you can also have in your van. Options from the company like Truma, who've been developing heating and cooling systems for years and years, and they've got a few options themselves. They've got the roof-mounted systems, which you often see in motorhomes and caravans, the Aventa range, and then they've also got the Sapphire, which is fitted inside the van. It's a unit which kind of you tuck away in a cupboard or something. And both of these are modern units, but they do require a lot of power to run them. If you only need aircon when you're on hookup, or you have a good battery bank, then these could be good options for you. Even more so an option in the very near future though, when the hybrid powered camper vans and the electric powered vehicles come out. I discussed this last week about the potential of using the electric battery in the new Ford Transit PHEV and that future Transporter as well. Being able to tap into the vehicle's actual motor battery, that great big battery which they have, it's just going to allow a much bigger power source, so you could use those bigger, more power hungry devices. And when that happens, I'm sure we're going to see more of these air conditioning and electric heaters in camper vans. That's what I think anyway. As the main drawback with them at the moment is the power which they need. So improve that, and it seems like a no-brainer, especially if the unit can replace your heater too. I mentioned all that in my video last week. You aren't going to be able to do that now though. So if you've not got AC, then you're not really going to be able to have it today. One thing you shouldn't really do though, but many people will, is use an evaporative cooler in high humidity, because you're just going to be adding moisture and you can make that van even more sticky and clammy. And they also say that they shouldn't be used in enclosed spaces due to that additional moisture. So if you're looking for air conditioning, do ensure that you're looking at true aircon and not evaporative cooling. During a UK heat wave, we have high humidity. Hence, we always say it's sticky weather. It's warm, there's warm and there's warm. And if you know what I'm saying there, then do put a phrase in the comments. And I do still have the towel. Anyway, have a Solero and yeah, you know the rest. And that's another quite obvious tip. Keep hydrated. Drink plenty of water. But who likes to drink lukewarm water? Not many. Like me, you probably want to keep water in the fridge, and I keep mine in here. And I've had this for a couple of years now, and it does keep things really, really quite chilled. You won't be able to see that, but you can see that is very, very chilled. I've got on with this really, really well, and it's an ice maker too, so absolutely perfect for days like today. But yeah, just having a fridge in your van, whatever it is, or maybe a cool box, Yeti cool box, which I'm always talking about. And yeah, I do have my Yeti cup, my Staycation lifestyle Yeti cup, which I'll come on to in a little moment. And oh yeah, I've got my rider here. I do like my toys, but I had a bit of an accident on it the other day. Nothing major, but I didn't put it in the van properly, and I slammed the tailgate shut because I was in a rush, and it actually broke this rear light. Oops. You can see that it's not broken anymore. Well, it is, but I kind of super glued it together, but I definitely need to get that replaced. So it's a good job I'm actually going up to My Rider in a few weeks, month or so, because I'm really wanting to test out the My Rider 20 in green, obviously. So I will report back to see what I think about that. But back to the water, and I've actually bought this thing to actually test out, and it's not an advert. I'm not even going to tell you what it is, but it's triple insulated. And it should be able to keep a cold drink cold for 24 hours. So I'm going to chill some water in it, and I'm going to leave it in the van all day and see if it remains cool. It's also meant to keep things fizzy as well, but I'm not going to put fizzy stuff in it. I'm just going to put water in it. Now, I already know how good my Yeti stuff is, and it really does kind of keep things cool and also keep warm. But you can't really just chuck it in a bag because it's going to be going out. So when you're on a walk, kind of need something which is a bit more enclosed. So I've got that, and I'm going to try that out and see what that's like. Maybe I will report back, who knows. But yeah, I bought that myself like I do with most of the products, and yeah, we'll kind of see how we get on. Anyway, some quick tips to help you out. Now again, very, very simple, and you should really kind of already know this, and you probably won't want to do it anyway, but cooking inside your van kind of goes without saying really. Have a barbecue outside instead. Use a portable stove outside, or even better, have a Mediterranean diet meal. And I only say that as I'm told that's what I should be eating more of, but I don't really like feta cheese or olives, but never mind. Anyway, some say that you should soak yourself in water and place a fan in front of you. But that's not really a good idea, is it? Because I don't particularly want a wet van, and I'm also just going to be adding to the humidity. I don't think anybody else is going to be too happy if I soak them with a hose pipe and chuck a fan on them. You could get a freezer pack or freeze a bottle of water and place it in front of your fan. Maybe only a small benefit, but we're after marginal gains here. Marginal gains are good when we have all this heat which we're just not acclimatised to. We just need to do everything which we can to get that temperature down. And something you're going to want to get rid of is that Sherpa blanket or the duvet in this heat. And perhaps you've probably already done that, but a cotton sheet or maybe two after you've taken a cool shower. I often find that having a cool shower really does help me cool down. You know, what are your campervan cooling tips? Let me know, and everybody else in the comments. Do you fancy a new reflective wrap on the outside of your van to make sure it reflects the heat? Or do you plan on dangling some ice packs in front of your vents? Keeping cool may require a series of these tips. There is no magic. Well, there could be with air conditioning, and hopefully, like I said, we will see much more of that fitted to vans coming soon. And if you didn't see that video where I discussed the future of the campervans and some great new possible products, you can see that here. Take care, and I hope to see you soon.